Hello, welcome back to I Got Board Game. I'm Ben, and it is Friday, so I'm back with another video, and this time I have another game review for you. And today I will be reviewing a small, abstract, filler, push your luck with kinds of set collection and bidding, and that game is No Thanks. You want to play? No thanks. No, you should play. So, No Thanks is a small filler game in this box that plays 3 to 5 players. And it says 20 minutes, but I think it can easily be 15, maybe even 10 minutes. And this version is published by Z-Man Games. And according to Board Game Geek, this game came out in 2004. So it is much older than most of the games I've been reviewing on this channel. But my history with this game is that it was one of the games I tried really early on when I was getting into modern games. And it really kind of just showed me how tabletop games can be different than what we think. Because back then, when I thought of board games, tabletop games, I thought of those classics like Monopoly, Life, Sorry, Candyland, all of those, which a lot of the times the key mechanic in those was called roll and move, where you roll a die or spin a wheel, move that many spaces, and then see what happens to you. And so that's kind of mostly what I thought of board games back then. And maybe that's what a lot of you guys might think of board games too, or experiences with them. And so when I tried this small abstract filler, it really just focuses on a couple of main mechanics, but those were different from roll and move. And so it really opened my eyes to what modern tabletop games do. And so to give you an idea of that, I will give a quick run through of the rules. And since it is a filler game, I could probably teach you all the rules right now. So coming over to this image here, which is a game already in progress a bit, like a number of turns in. But the components of the game are essentially this deck of cards, which are numbered 3 to 33, and these red tokens. So that's all there is to the game. And to set up, you shuffle the deck of cards, all the cards together, and you randomly remove 9 of them. So 9 numbers aren't in the game. And then you give every player 11 of these red tokens. And so the way the game plays is the players will go in turn order clockwise, and on a player's turn, what they're going to do is flip over the top card of the deck face up, if there isn't already a card face up in the center. And with whatever card is in the center, then they have to choose whether to take it and put it face up in front of them to count as points at the end of the game, or put one of their red tokens paying to pass and not take that card. And so if the first player took this card, then it would move on to the second player, and then they would flip a new card, make the same decision. If the first player paid a token to pass, then the decision would pass to the second player, and they would decide with that card that's already face up, will they take it, put it in front of them as points, or pay a red token to also pass it. And so there's always just one card face up in the center at a time, and players are just going in order to make that decision. Take it or pass it. When a player takes a card also, they'll take any red tokens that were placed next to it, basically other tokens that players had spent up to that point to pass that card. The player who takes the card will end up taking all those red tokens. So that's how players will spend and gain these red tokens. And so what's the point of the game? At the very end of the game ends when this whole deck of cards is split up, taken by all the players. And then at the end, players will then count the points they have. And the whole goal is to have the least amount of points. And so you'll count the value of your cards. And for each red token, you'll subtract 1 point. So having those at the end is helpful in reducing your score. But then the other main scoring rule is that if you were able to collect sets of consecutive cards, for example, here, this player has 2 sets. If the game were to end here, this player has a set of 3, 4, 5, and a set of 25, 26. And so if you have these consecutive sets, which basically are just increasing by 1 from card to card, then you'll only count the lowest card in each set. So in this example here, this player, his score would not be 3 plus 4 plus 5 and then plus 25 plus 26. It would just be 3 plus 25 and then minus, say, these 5 tokens that that player still has. And so again, that's how you add up your score, and then the player with the lowest score wins. And so those are all the rules for No Thanks. So really easy to teach. And so that's probably one of the bigger pros of it, right? That the game is really small, right? This small filler box, just this deck of cards, and these tokens, which I believe came in the bag. So that's nice too. And so that's a pro. Another pro I would give the game is, again, like I mentioned in the beginning, how it opened my eyes to how modern games can be different, have these different kind of mechanics in them, right? This is primarily a push your luck, right? Where you're really trying to see, oh, when should I take the card? When is it worth paying to skip? But then I think the interesting part with the push your luck in this game, there's 2 parts that are interesting. One is that there's a limit to how much you could push your luck, right? A lot of games with push your luck, maybe, you know, with a die roll, like you can kind of keep choosing to roll your dice until you bust. Where there is that part in this game, but then there's also a little earlier in that kind of pushing your luck where you're already planning like, oh, like I'm spending a lot of my red tokens, which, you know, are small ways to decrease my score at the end of the game. So do I really want to do that? Am I really going to set myself up to not have red tokens when an even higher number card comes out? So that's kind of the simple strategy planning in the game, but it is an interesting layer to the push your luck that isn't just go until you bust, but it's like there's a little bit of kind of, you're losing a little bit more each time that you're passing. The other part that's interesting about the push your luck is that it does kind of push you to that point where you are then looking at what other players are collecting in front of them too, right? The push your luck aspect where you then have to pay attention to, oh, does this person want that card? So maybe I should just take it anyway, right? It's a little kind of maybe pushing you to do a take that kind of action, like a mean kind of action. But that's also the other interesting part to the push your luck, that then you start looking at what other players want and how much you're willing to spend to pass up a card, or maybe you're gonna not spend to take it so they don't get it, or you're gonna even see them try to spend on a card that they want just so that when they get the card they want, they also get a lot of red tokens. And so there's that kind of reading your opponent, which adds a layer to the push your luck. And then I think maybe the last pro I could give this game is that, again, not just with the components, but that it's so simple, right? It's an abstract game. And so it just focuses on the mechanics, the pushing your luck and the way to score. And so it's really clean that way and really simple that way, not bogged down by some kind of pasted on theme. And so now onto my cons. I think that's the one that comes to mind first, is that there's no theme. And that was both a pro, but I would also say a con, in the sense that I obviously have mentioned before in other reviews, I do like themes to my game. It draws me into them. And so without a theme, it does kind of just feel like you're playing the mechanics, right? It's just nothing to really pull you in other than your interest in trying the mechanics. And so that's kind of a turnoff for me. It is great as a filler, but then I do probably know other fillers, quick games that have interesting mechanics, but then also, you know, a great theme with it, or even great artwork. Like in the case of my version here from Z-Man Games, I think this looks pretty outdated in its style. And I don't like the color choice. I'll show you later kind of the newer versions that have come out in more recent years. I mean, it's still the same game, but I think it just has like a nicer look, maybe more pop to it that makes it seem more friendly. And so I think that look to it is not great, not appealing, and especially how it doesn't have a theme is not appealing to me. And then I think The last part that I would say is a con on the game is the tokens involved. I mean, it's a main mechanic of choosing to pay a token to pass or not. But then the rules just say kind of put the token next to the card, where I think it's just a little fiddly if you're playing this game quickly and you're kind of just throwing tokens into the center when you're passing. The solution I did find was just use like the box lid to throw your tokens in, and then eventually when the player takes the card in the center, they also just pour out all the tokens into their hand, and that's easy. It's clean. I don't know if they planned it that way. I mean, it's not written in the rules to do it that way. That's just a simple solution that I think anyone could think of with what you're given. But just the tokens themselves are, that mechanic is just a little fiddly when you're just playing quickly. You don't want to just have everyone like take turns. Oh no, I don't want to throw a token, and tokens are rolling around or stuff like that. And so I think that's just the small con I have for the game. But the main one was the lack of theme, and so it's not something I would want to really invest that much time in. And so with that, we will get on to my score of the game. And so my score on Board Game Geek is a 5.5. And I give it a 5.5 because I think 5 is a take it or leave it score according to Board Game Geek scale, where 6 is like we'll play if in the mood. And so I would say I'm almost never in the mood to play the game because, again, it has no theme. It's really just about the mechanics, and I rather play even something that maybe a little heavier, but it has like a nice theme, nice look to it. But then it's also not take it or leave it, just because, like I mentioned, how it opened my eyes to what modern games do, right? The different kind of mechanics they can have. That I think it is something that people should try. It's just trying out the mechanic, and it works well. It's clean, but just seeing like, oh, this is different. These are different mechanics that other games can have, and maybe you'll even see if you like the mechanics by playing it in this game that's just basically about the mechanics, right? Like pushing your luck, set collection, and so yes, that's why I give it a 5.5. Quite a bit down from the 7.1 average on Board Game Geek, which I am kind of surprised about because it's such a light game. But yes, a 5.5 for me. And then the last thing I want to show you guys is, as I mentioned, my version is from Z-Man Games. I think it's one of the original early versions, if not the original publishing of it. But the game is readily available in retail stores like Target. I've seen it there. So you can get this pretty easily. And I think it's going to be $10, at most 15, but I would guess 10. So very affordable. But then there have been more recent versions of it from different publishers, and I think that's what you'll see in stores. And so what those might look like are, let's see if I could show you. I think this one is from Mayfair Games, came out maybe a few years ago. And I think even this version looks nice. It's a little like cleaner in its like edges than my version, and then it has like solid color, just a nice pop, making it look more friendly, inviting. Maybe it's kind of like Uno looking just a little bit because of the color, solid colors. I don't think the colors make any difference to the game, but it just makes it look nicer and cleaner and simpler. And so that version is what you might see, or you might see this one. I think this might be the most recent version that came out by Amigo, which might have been the original publishers too. This one, I don't particularly like how it looks because I think the colors are kind of too all over the place and doesn't have a nice solid consistency to it. But again, it's still more modern looking than my version. And this one actually says 3 to 7 players, which I'm not sure if the components change, like the number of cards or tokens they give you change, but I would assume that it still plays the same. But anyways, these are the versions you'll probably see in stores now. If you want to pick up the game, give it a try. Like I said, the game is not quite a take it or leave it, but it's also not like a game I'm ever in the mood for really, but it's just something I would say people should try if they can. And so that is my review of No Thanks. If you found this helpful, please share this video with family, friends, people you want to play board games with. And until next time, I'll see you then. Bye.